Hi and welcome. Welcome to our video chat. I am Jane Migdal, one of 3 realtors on the M3 Group team. With me today are my teammates, realtors Kate Moynihan and Nancy Moore. And joining our discussion today is Greg Giokas. He is Senior Loan Officer at RMS Mortgage. Greg, welcome.
Hi, Greg.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Greg.
Sure. So, Greg, it seems like there are a lot of questions right now, certainly about real estate, certainly about home buying and selling, but, and we're able to answer a lot of those questions. Some of the questions that we'd rather ask an expert, we've got a few of those that we'd like to run by you, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All
Happy.
right. So first question that we have is your company still lending money to purchase homes?
Great question. So we are still lending. So everything has been, for the most part, status quo. There have been some changes in some aspects, some lending guidelines, specifically on what I call the fringe loan program. So if we look at on one side of the spectrum, we're looking at first-time homebuyer programs, specifically the FHA loan program. There have been some pullback on some guidelines in that particular space. And then on the other side, more of the higher end clientele, jumbo markets, there's been a little bit of a pullback on that end too, but nothing drastic and nothing that's impeded the ability for us to be able to lend for home buyers.
So have you seen a decrease in the number of mortgage applications coming in?
There has been a decrease in mortgage applications. I'd say for me personally, from last year around this time, we're probably down about 30%. Yeah.
And Greg, what changes, if any, have you seen in the process of securing a mortgage?
So, well, one major aspect of the industry right now is the hot topic, I should say, that a lot of lenders and the industry, the mortgage industry in general is looking at is people that are not employed currently or furloughed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because the concern is defaults, what they call early payment defaults. And the industry has they're very keen on watching this specific statistic because they want to make sure that any loans that are written or secured for home buyers, that the new home buyers are able to make their mortgage payments from day one, right? So right now, a lot of that is uncertain because a lot of people, they may be employed by the time they while they're getting processed for their mortgage, but by the time that mortgage is closed or even during that process, they may lose their job. This is a problem because they want to make sure that people can afford these mortgages. So that's the hot topic at this point. So I would say that's probably the major difference from where we were just about a month ago. Other than that, the remaining process has been more or less the same.
Okay. So what happens if you currently own a home and you've been making your mortgage payments and then you become furloughed? What happens with, is there any forgiveness program, anything going on in the mortgage industry with that?
Right. So the government, as part of the relief package, they came out with the CARE Act, which basically allows homeowners the ability to request for a forbearance program. Okay, so very important to understand this because there's a lot of miscommunication about this particular program. Number one, people need to make sure that they reach out to their servicing company, the people that are collecting their mortgage payments, and having that discussion. Because A, some servicers are not participating, and two, other services that are participating have very specific procedures that apply. So in other words, you have to show a hardship, and then they'll be able to implement the forbearance program. So the forbearance program will allow people to defer their mortgage payments for at least 90 days, okay? So let's say the homeowner has the ability to apply and they're accepted for the forbearance program. Another thing that people need to be very aware of is that the money doesn't just disappear. That money that's owed gets tacked on to the principal balance of the mortgage, okay? So that has to be paid at some point.
Right.
And in fact, if you look at it mathematically, if that principal balance increases, you may end up paying more over the long haul for that mortgage, okay? The other thing is, even though the government came out and said that their credit, that the homeowner's credit will not be impacted by entering into a forbearance program, we're not exactly sure. There has not been any directive or any specific guidance on people's, how the forbearance program will affect their ability to get a mortgage in the future. In other words, how will lenders react to the information that someone was part of a forbearance program at some point in time, okay? So that's another thing that everyone needs to be very aware of. So forbearance shouldn't be the first option. It should be last option for most people.
Last resort.
And I understand that a lot of, right, last resort. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't go out and at least inquire, because the program's there, you know, it's there to help homeowners, but essentially it's there to prevent homeowners from getting into a really bad financial situation and then ultimately losing their house.
Okay. Sure. So Greg, for the people who, this is great information for the people who are current homeowners or in the process of buying. The people who have decided to put it off a little bit, we're all seeing that the mortgage rates right now are very low. Do you think that the rates can continue to decrease for people who are looking to buy later down the road?
Yeah, I think at the very least, rates will probably stay relatively low. The government is interjecting a lot of money into the mortgage-backed securities market, which is helping keep rates very low. And what's interesting now, and what's happening kind of on a bigger scale behind the scenes in the mortgage-backed securities market, and just to kind of give you some background information, so mortgages are secured, and then they become securities, right, that get bought and sold in a secondary market, kind of like the stock market, right? So these investors are purchasing and selling mortgage-backed securities. It's not as volatile as a stock market, but it is there is supply and demand that plays into a factor just like it would with stock market. Now, right now, given a lot of the uncertainty and some instability specific to the concern of people not being able to make their mortgage payments for various reasons, a lot of the investors have held back on buying these mortgage-backed securities, right? So when investors do not buy these mortgage-backed securities, that tends to increase the purchase price, which then tends to increase mortgage rates. Okay, but one aspect that the government has been basically interjecting and inserting itself as a investor, as a buyer of these mortgage-backed securities to help stabilize those interest rates so that they don't increase. And for that reason, I think rates will stay low. Now, will they continue to decrease? That has a lot to do with, A, will the government continue to be a buyer in the mortgage-backed securities market, right? And then subsequently, will the investors come back in and start buying these mortgage-backed securities again, okay? Excuse me. So I think both cases will probably happen, and which may lead to a potential lowering in interest rates.
All right. Well, thank you. Oh, Nancy, do you have another question?
I was just going to follow up and ask if you have seen, what changes have you seen in people getting pre-approved? Anything?
Not substantial changes. I mean, the one question that we're asking everyone now is just, are you employed or are you furloughed?
Okay.
Because that helps dictate how we move forward with the pre-approval. Now, I'm not, in any case, people cannot close on a mortgage if they're unemployed or furloughed, right?
Right.
But for me personally, I'm still going through the process of pre-approving the client, specifically if they're furloughed. If we have an understanding of when they will be employed once again, then we set up the pre-approval process, we get them pre-approved, and then whatever offers they make will be contingent on their being able to retain their original employment.
Got it.
Other than that, nothing's really changed. No.
Good.
Great.
Good to know. All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Lots of good information for us and for anybody who's watching. So if anybody out there has any other questions for Greg, please reach out to one of the M3 group and we'll be happy to put you in touch.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thank you
again.
for
Yes.
joining us, Greg.
Awesome.
You're very welcome. I really appreciate you setting up this platform. I think it's great for people to be educated, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay.
Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Greg.
Bye.
Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks.